You don't know what it took to find this box. I have boxes upon boxes upon boxes in lots and lots of cupboards because my collection is not out. It hasn't been out for 20 years. It's been stored away. And I knew I had what's in here somewhere in this house. But it took a while to find it. Anyway, the reason why I've got this box down is because I'm doing a viewer request. In fact, it's the very first viewer request that I've ever had the fortune to be given. Who was it? It was a chap called Blues Crew. He wanted me to do a comparison, so that's what we're doing. Right. First problem. It's too tall, I can't see. Let's put it on the floor. Try that one again. So what's in here? Lots of orange boxes and blue boxes. All junk. What am I looking for? I am looking for that. That's what we're looking for. Sample copy. In fact, I've got another one in here somewhere. Hang on. There we go. 2 4th Doctor TARDISes. That's what this video is all about. And in fairness, we might as well get out that. And also that. None of these have ever been opened, I don't think. Purely because I'd never got around to it. So what are we doing? Well, you'll find out in a moment. So welcome back. It's a bit of a different video today, and normally I wouldn't do a video like this, but a viewer called Blues Crew has asked me to compare my recent TARDIS model that I built to the character options 4th Doctor TARDIS. And before we start, I've really got to say that this is, despite it being, a decent question and a valid one, it's an incredibly unfair comparison. The reason why I say that is because this model here is a mass-produced piece. It's designed specifically for hundreds, if not thousands, of units of these things to be produced each day, whereas my one took weeks upon weeks to fabricate just one. Okay, yes, I admit I built 4 over, 10 weeks, but still, this one is mass-produced, my one is bespoke, it's handmade, so you can't really compare the two. The other reason why I don't particularly like the idea of comparing this one to my other one is that this really isn't a Tom Baker TARDIS. You'll probably know this, but actually, let's just bring this one in. This is the 7th Doctor's TARDIS. Now, most of you would know this, but this thing here is just this with a different roof. That's all it is. Different roof and a different paint job. It was a downturn in the economic market that made this what it is. This was a reasonably, in fact it was a very, when it was designed, and I designed this by the way, when I designed this was absolutely accurate. However, there was a, as I said, a downturn in the market about 10 years ago over in China, where the Chinese workers decided they wanted to be paid more, and quite rightly so, but also the oil prices kind of went up. And that had a negative impact, to a degree, on the toy industry, I suppose. So toy producers had to start looking for cheaper options to produce their toys. In this sense, rather than doing a completely new tooling, because the original plan that we did have was to do all of the TARDISes for each Doctor accurately, but economics just said no, so this is what we ended up with. So you would notice on here, this sign box here ends there. It should have ended further out, and I did actually design it that way. But as soon as I saw the prototype photograph of this with Sylvester McCoy, and I saw this type of sign box, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I knew that character were going to reuse the tooling for all the other TARDISes. I mean, when they came to do the first Doctor TARDIS, let's just bring that in, which is there. That is just a straight repaint of that, but with a badge stuck on it. So there's no other alterations. It's just a repaint. The interesting thing about this, and I'm going to talk about the design of this anyway, just for the sake of it. As I said, when I designed it to be an exact replica of I think it's season 21. So that's why, you know, the lock is up here and not down there. However, when they came to produce it, the base is obviously a lot taller, and it has a positive draft on it, which is this angle here. And it's the same up here. That's just purely so they can get this section and this section out of the moulds, so it doesn't lock, you see, because otherwise if you've got something like that and there's your mould and there's the piece, the two can jam. If it's got a draft, it can slide out easily. So that's why some of the bits changed. Also, when the first test piece came back and I was given it to have a look at, you'll probably notice on all of these there's some strange texturing on it. Well, the original had a real heavy wood grain, just like the new series TARDISes, and I said, look, these props never had that. You're going to have to get rid of it. And so I just suggested just bung some texture over it. So that's what happened. They put some texture on there just to try and disguise the faux wood grain that they put in. Also, the other thing that they did was originally on the pull to open panel, they had the 4 screws in, one in each corner, which again was inaccurate for a classic box. That was more like a new series box. And I said, look, you've got to get rid of that as well. So anyway, that's the backstory. So I designed these things as a 1/13 scale model, because that's what it is. It's 13 scale. The figures are 5.5 inches, and these supposedly fit with that. But we'll come to that in a minute. So anyway, let's get rid of these and look at the Tom Baker version. Now, it's a toy. I'm not going to review this. It's a toy, and it's reasonable, and it's not accurate to what it's meant to be. For my mind, it's fine. I would have liked to have gone more accurate, but given the circumstances, this is what we ended up with, and yeah, it's all right. However, the one thing that really does bug me is this wretched roof. Now, if I tip it forward, you can see it's flattened, but it's not just flattened. It's concaved, so you can probably see it. If I put a flat edge against it and rock it, you can see daylight under there, which means this lamp here is sitting further down than this point here. It actually bends, and that really does just bug the crap out of me. But anyway, so yeah, it's meant to be the Brahowski box, so that's around 76, and yeah, it's pretty generic. Now, if I bring in my model, and this is where the unfair advantage comes in, it's a bespoke model against a mass-produced model. Immediately you can see the differences. The first most obvious difference is mine's taller. Now, let's quickly get into that. Let's bring in our little figure and stand him there. Now, character options range of classic and new series figures are based around the idea that they're 5.5 inches tall. That doesn't necessarily mean the figure itself is 5.5 inches tall. The 5.5 refers to 6 foot at full scale. So if your figure is slightly smaller than 5.5 inches, that means it's less than 6 foot, and if it's slightly taller, it means it's taller than 6 foot. So 5.5 inches into 6 feet, which is 72 inches, is pretty much 13. So that it tells you he is meant to be 13 times smaller than his full-size counterpart, just as this is and this is. Now, as I previously mentioned, you can see that this one is taller than this one. Why is that? Well, and this is where I think it's really unfair, but come on, let's get on with it. There's a mistake on all of the TARDISes. Look, if I open up the door here and put Tom Baker Dolly in there, bit of a problem here. He doesn't fit. That's because this box is too short. Whereas if I put him up to there, you can see fits perfectly. I'm not going to go opening this door because I've got to take the roof off to do it. So what's actually happened here? Well, that's a 13 scale model, and this is off by half a scale point. So this TARDIS here is technically 1/13 to 13.5, whereas that's 1 to 13, that's 1 to 13.5, so it's half a scale ratio off, and you might not think that's terribly bad, but look, it doesn't fit. I mean, if you got one with a hat, I think, without a hat that is, I think it just about fits, but yeah, it's too small. So, let me just get rid of the figure and just look at it. So, my TARDIS is a hand-built thing. It took ages to make. And yeah, look, let's just go through the details. So, by comparison, there's the front. My door opens here. I've got a little pin just behind there. I take the roof off and take the pin out, and the door can open freely. There's no release mechanism. That's why my base is that size and this base is this size. This has a whole mechanism in there, so they had to increase the size of the base for that. Mine doesn't have any sound. My Paul McGann one did, and it actually lit up as well. And I was a bit clever, and I made a key where you wave the key over the roof, and it would make the light flash and the warpy. This one, yeah, it does have light, it does have sound with a great big ugly speaker, which actually you don't need. You switch it on down here, and you've got a button here that, you know, plonk it down, it does one warp, pick it up, it does the other. It does the takeoff and the landing. Mine wasn't that fancy. So mine also has the black writing on a sort of frosted background on the front, whereas this one is white on black. Here it's white on black as well. This is white on dark blue, and then to the back, it's the same all the way around. This is the right hand side, again, because this is just an 80s box, it didn't have any damage, but there's mine. So there's damage on that side. In fact, there's damage all over this box. When we were going to do this properly, as a properly designed Brahosky box, I wouldn't have made it quite like this one. I would have sanitized this, and actually I did make a sanitized version of this TARDIS for a client about 10 years ago, just before characters started doing their classic toys. Now, the chap I made that for, I said to him, look, do you realise how knackered this prop is? I mean, this thing's completely square. If you look at it, there's right angles everywhere. You look at this one, and, well, that is not a right angle from there to there. They're just look how wonk it is. You can probably see, you know, even the roof doesn't fit. So when I suggested this, or pointed this out to the first client, I said, look, why don't we push the model towards that style, but toyify it? So that's what he ended up with. You know, it was a nice looking model, but that was the model that I would have produced as this thing rather than a bespoke model. So had character gone ahead, you would have got that style of TARDIS. But yeah, mine's got a pitch on it, my roof as well. To be honest, I don't really like making this comparison. It's not fair. This is a toy, mass-produced toy. This is a bespoke, handmade piece for a client. So the only way you can compare them is that they're both police boxes and they're very slightly different. But for, I don't know how much these cost at the time. I think they're about £30. That costs £30. That costs several £100s. So if you got the money, you pay people like me to make you something like that. If you don't have the money, or you're just a bit tight, or you don't care, go for something like that. It's a no-brainer. So yeah, that is the TARDIS. Let's just bring the others in. Now, can we get them all into shot? I think we can. Yeah, that's not a bad shot. So there we are. That is a comparison. Again, like I said, it's incredibly unfair, but that's the deal. So all of my TARDISes, which one am I the most proud of? I would love to say that one, but I would say to a degree, I do like the fact that I've made a relatively decent toy version that the masses can play with. You know, brings them some form of joy. But everything I'm involved with, I'm always proud of to some degree, because it means I bring joy to whoever's got it. So I think I'm going to bring this to an end now. As I said, comparison of all 4 TARDISes, a little bit unfair, but at least I've answered the question. And you've also got a little bit of backstory on how these things were produced. So on that note, I'm going to leave it here. I think we've pretty much come to the end. We haven't gone into huge detail, we kind of glossed over it, but you've got the general idea of what went on. Well, I'm glad you could join me again today, and as always, thank you so much for watching.